Nerves don't get you anywhere. Of course he's good enough. That's the only thing I think. The rest I know. I'm not afraid to pitch this horse into battle. He took massive chance in the Challow halfway down the back, and he took 2 massive chances at the festival. The second last was even chancier than the last. In our sport, perhaps behind the cameras, we sometimes say that was coming, but we've worked with him and we feel like we've sharpened him up, and I think the ride Harry gave him in the International was excellent because he held him into the bottom of all the jumps and sort of reassured him that he can go in close and touch the board if he had to, and that was going to be fine, because ultimately the chances he took were by being competitive. They weren't chances by being indecisive.
No.
They were competitive chances, like, let's go.
I want to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes with young horses especially, you have to temper that enthusiasm.
And the International, obviously, it was a bit of a no race in some, but it answered the question that, can he quicken off a very slow, sluggish pace? Yeah,
he can go fast.
So the drop to 2 is at that level has never been a concern.
No concern. It was a question over the summer, massive question. But I feel like, and I think I've said it before, like, we've got to talk about something, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people want to talk about with him. But I think it's been over talked about now, and I think he's answered the question. And I think what actually comes down to now is he good enough?
Yeah.
Is he good enough to win a champion hurdle? He's good enough to win an international, Yeah. That's a good 2-mile race, and he quickened up very well. Okay, he beat 2 horses that numerically he should have done. But he still did, and he still did it handsomely.
What do you perceive to be your biggest adversary in the champion hurdle?
Geez, depends who turns up, but, Kudlossie Mouth, she's very good. Not unbeatable, not at 2 miles. Brighter Days Ahead has a question mark to answer over the venue. I feel like the one that's probably getting less talked about than it should do is Golden Ace, because she actually comes in this year in probably the best form she's ever been in. I know she was a fortuitous winner last year, etc., etc. But I remember when it happened to us with Roxana, and we were still pretty, not bullish that we'd have won, because that probably wasn't the case, but we were still afterwards, look, we've still got a Grade 1 horse. I think they've every right to be bullish, and they're in great form, and I think those 3 ladies are very formidable. This is Mydaddypaddy, always looked high class. Personally, I think this horse is coming into the type of form that we need him to be in, and I think it's a better type of form than he was for Aintree. But the biggest factor with this horse is that he was 4 into 5 this year. Like, if he was 5 into 6, I genuinely think he would have won at Aintree. That year, it's a big thing. I felt in my mind I needed to get a second run because he was so inexperienced before we went to Aintree, so I looked for 2 runs. I probably should have only had 1 and gone there a little bit fuller, if you like. But in my mind, I wanted to get the experience, and we were always going to go from Aintree to Cheltenham. We've not missed anything in between. You can see physically this horse, he's a strong horse. He's different type to the New Lion. The New Lion is slightly smaller and probably more furnished. As this horse, you can just see, to me anyway, he screams a bit of a chaser. And I've already alluded to next year's Arkle as I don't want to be one of those guys that looks forward all the time, but like, it was gonna be hard 4 into 5. I'm glad that that's out of the way now, and we can concentrate on him being ready in the spring. He's got a lot to learn, still got a lot to learn, but I think he's very high class. Is he 12 to 1? 12 to 1 shots win every day. Yeah, he's got a chance, no doubt. So this is Load of Sud. Was blown away probably by the Schlur performance. However, the Schlur performance was probably accentuated by 3 factors. 1, he was very ready. 2, he is brilliant fresh. And 3, John Bon obviously wasn't cherry ready that day. So I think that performance, we need to not necessarily temper it, but I think we have to look at it through the correct lens. But I'd also think that what you saw at Sandown is nothing like the reality. So at Sandown, he wasn't fresh. We trained him quite hard for Cheltenham Schlur Chase, and I felt like we got a bit of a, not a negative response, but he was obviously not quite at his best.
On day 2, of course, the Queen Mother Champion Chase looks a really competitive renewal this year. Maestro Marine National, of course, Load of Sud, who we haven't seen since the Tingle Creek.
And rightly so. Yeah, we have to keep him away from competition to keep him as fresh as possible, which for me is an unusual thing. I love running them, but we have to respect this horse's needs, and he needs to be fresh, and we have him in that condition. He looks fantastic. We can do a final piece of work because I think we can work him even harder up to the day, and I think he'll be a strong competitor. I really do. I think he has course form. He likes the place. You know, he has a lot of ticks in the boxes that perhaps some of the competitors don't. Let's put it this way, a really good clear round from Magsborough would make him as hard a horse to beat as there's going to be at the festival. He said that in the Arkle as well.
Yeah.
Marine National hasn't, you know, quite hit the headlines this year, for all that his trainer tells us that he's probably not going to come off the bridle. So,
mind you might not.
Well, it'll be a hard race. I know this horse will go well. I know this horse will see the trip out well. I know this horse will contend with any ground he has that day. Is he actually good enough to beat those others? That's what we don't know. That's what we're all going to the Cotswolds in 2 weeks to find out. This is Cabral Du Mathan, and I'll start with the obvious answer to all your questions is yes, we are going to run as long as the ground is not brutal. Which, looking at the long range forecast, I would hope that it's not. We've been very cautious with our approach to the springtime with him. And I hope you don't think it's been boring of me, but I've always got the best interest of the horse at heart. And I didn't want to say something that I later reneged on or you know, sort of changed my mind on. It was always our intention to go to Fontwell last week and then go on to Aintree. When Fontwell, it was obvious Fontwell was going to become a swimming pool. You know, it's the wrong thing to do. I'm trying to avoid that with him. I'm trying to avoid that with him because I'm trying to ensure longevity. I'm not afraid to pitch this horse into battle. That's not it at all. But what I don't want to do is do something now that I regret a year, 2, 3 down the line. Give him that hard race that he didn't need at that age. I'm very happy to step him up to 3 miles because I'm a believer, so is Harry, owners. We're all believers that 3 miles is what's going to suit him. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to go there on bad ground and give him an unnecessarily hard race. We want to make sure that this horse has the future at that trip, that we can enjoy him for seasons to come. I think he comes into this very, very interestingly. He comes from a totally different angle. You've got all those horses in there that stayed 3 miles, know how to sort of get down and get dirty from the back of 2 out and really see it out. Here is a horse who's undoubtedly going to be played late and used for speed. I hope it makes for good viewing. I hope we come out on top. And I feel that with that speed angle, if the ground was just good to soft, I feel like we have a potential asset that maybe the others have less of these days as they've gotten older. I really think that if we stay 3 miles, and I think we will, we've got a serious player on our hands here. I've always believed he's a Gold Cup horse, and I've always been of the opinion that we must go for the Gold Cup when he's most likely to run his best race in the Gold Cup, and that is this year. Last year it was never the right year after Haydock. You know, at the start of the year I wanted to go down that route, but we had to change tack pretty quickly because it was going to be a hard season to get over that race. We nearly did. You know, we had a great run up at Kelso and won, and then he nearly won the bowl. I feel like he's just in better form this year, though. Yeah. His form is better. He looks better, but like he's just ready. Like he's ready. If there's ever a year, it's this year, and if this year ain't good enough, we ain't going to win a Gold Cup.
So you think he's got?
If he doesn't win it this year, we ain't going to win one.
He's obviously got a very live chance of reversing positions with Gaelic Warrior. Then
I feel, I do. Yes, and I feel like they're not priced appropriately because they were both in very good form for Aintree, and there was very little between them. Yes, we were second, not first.
Yeah.
But what's the difference in price points? I think there's horses in the race that we will beat, and we are potentially better than, and I think there's other horses in the race where I think, geez, I have a bit of doubt about that because at the end of the day, I am involved in it, and I have opinion on the others, and I can study form. I think there's some that are going to be harder to beat than others, but like I say, he's ready for a Gold Cup. He really is. as long as he's not unlucky in running, we'll be proud of his performance, because however he runs, I'm sure he's going to run the very best he can.
And probably a blessing in disguise, perhaps he didn't get into a hard race in the Cotswold Chase.
Yeah, I mean, you have to sometimes, sit back and read the bigger picture. The mistake 2 out cost him victory. It also, any victory, whether it was an assured victory is debatable, but it cost him any chance of victory, but it also meant he didn't get a hard race, and we could have left a Gold Cup behind that day. We couldn't have won a Gold Cup, but we could have lost one, and we came away quite happy that we at least didn't lose a Gold Cup. This is Maestro Conti. I feel like this is one of our best chances of the whole week. He did 2 very, very different things. He went round Kempton on decent ground and showed lots of toe. He went around Cheltenham over an extended 2 miles on soft ground and also won. It's a great thing to be able to have, that you have that versatility. And that talent, not many have that. He's got course form, his training has been exceptional, his work has only got better. We know a lot about the New Lion, we know a lot about Great Dawning, we know a lot about Lotus Sud. We know less about Cabral, but we know quite a lot. And the expectation and how they work has been fairly consistent with perhaps small flutters of don't forget I'm really good work. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that horse, work is getting better. Do you know what I mean? And it should do, because he's young, we've not had him that long, etc, 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 but it is visible. It is visible. Harry rides him and he feels the same as well. The work is getting better. It's quite exciting. Historically, when we've had horses like him in the spring going into spring targets, not just Cheltenham or Angel, but like any spring targets, and their work is improving like that, they're going to run big.
Which horse, if it won over the week, would give you the most sort of emotional pleasure, with being perhaps a tricky horse to train, or you feel that you've done the best possible job with?
I'll tell you what would be a very sort of like heartwarming victory for us would be Take No Chances in the mares. Now she's got a nearly impossible task with Woodoo and possibly Lossymouth, but she was 3rd in the race last year, going on to the new Trackle Suitor. We've given her 1 less run this year to have a super fresh. She'll put up her best run in, and she's clockwork. She is absolute clockwork. She turns up every time for us. She runs her heart out. She's one of those horses that, if they could smile, there's always have a smile on her face. I think she'd be a very sort of special winner in the yard if she did. I don't know, she's not perhaps one of the leading lights, but she turns up for us time after time. We're very, very proud of her.
And one horse perhaps that you've seen that's overpriced?
Oh, 100% Katira.
Right.
Yeah, for the old Coral Cup. I think she's massively overpriced. She gets into a handicap off a middling weight, which she hasn't done for so long. Bit of sun on her back, bit of ground underfoot. I think she's massively overpriced. I'm not saying that she's going to go there and win, but she's massively overpriced.
Been a long-term plan?
Long enough.
Yeah.
Long enough, yeah. But hasn't been like a 2-season plan or anything like that.
You can't beat the experience that she's got in races like that.
Yeah, she does, and she comes home strong now, and she's got that class to travel. She's never been to the track, I don't think. That's the only thing, but won't bother her.
No. Good luck.
All right.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.